Hello and welcome to the last in the current series of Material Matters with Grant Gibson. I'm sure most of you know how this works by now. In each edition I talk to a maker, designer, artist or architect about a material with which they're intrinsically linked and discover how it's changed their lives and careers. Today I find myself in the East London workshop of jeans maker Blackhorse Lane Ateliers, and sat across the table from me is the man who founded the company in 2016, Hannah Tash. We're going to be talking about all things denim. Blackhorse Lane bills itself as the city's only craft jeans maker and likes to do things a little differently. The public, for instance, can walk in and see garments being made without an appointment. There's a pop-up restaurant at weekends. And the company, says Tash, wants to think global and act local, employing local machinists and offering shares to each employee. Not only that, but Tash believes it makes, and here I quote from the website, the best jeans in the world. Han, thank you very much for doing this. Really appreciate coming to your factory.
Well, thank you for coming.
No, it's my pleasure. I mean, can we pick up on that, the best jeans in the world? Let's take that as our starting point. What makes your jeans the best?
Our background is tailoring, and when I talk about our background in the tailoring, it's our professional heritage, my professional heritage. I come from Turkey, and very often when I talk about my heritage, professional heritage, people are mixed. They have mixed ideas. I have learned my trade in London. I think London as a city has a huge heritage around tailoring. And I witnessed decline of that know-how in London last 30 years. And it's part of my identity. And whenever I saw jeans on the market, they were made very badly to tailoring standards. They were made really badly, and still to this day, it's done very cheaply, very fast. And our idea was to put all our tailoring knowledge onto the denim, onto the jeans. And when you put that, just example of it, when you have something unlined, you shouldn't show to customers unfinished edges. And if you open your jeans inside out, you'll see lots of unfinished edges. And our idea is to hide all those edges. And if you look at our jeans inside out, you could wear them inside out. They are that good.
So it's all about the detailing.
It's all about detailing, yes.
Can we talk about denim? Because it's such a ubiquitous material that sometimes it's easy to forget what it's actually made of. Can we discuss how denim is made, what it is?
Sure. It's made of cotton, 100% cotton. It's not very sustainable to grow cotton. And everybody uses jeans. And everybody buys cheap jeans. And they use it for 2, 3, 4 months and then throw it away. And it became very unsustainable because it's made out of cotton, and we don't have enough cotton to produce jeans anymore.
Really? And why is cotton unsustainable?
Cotton needs lots of water to grow.
Right.
And at this moment, certain countries in the world are growing cotton in a mass scale. And because of that mass scale production, we have lakes, rivers are drained. So that's why it's unsustainable.
Right.
Yeah.
So jeans were invented in, 1873, I think, by Levi Strauss, who was a Bavarian dry goods merchant, and Jacob Davis, who was a tailor. They were workwear initially. When did they start becoming a fashion item?
They became fashion items at the end of 60s, beginning of 70s. But still they are workwear because all our type of work has changed. We are workers, and I would say 80% of the population in the world still wears jeans.
So can we spool back a little bit and talk about your background? You grew up in Turkey.
I grew up in Istanbul.
In Istanbul.
Yep.
And what did your family do?
My family, my father always had his own small business. I would say he was an entrepreneur, and I would say that I learned my entrepreneur spirit from him. In 1987, I came to this country. The reason I came to this country because I didn't want to do my military service.
Right.
So I'm a pacifist. And the reason I chose London, because my uncle had a factory and he's been here since the 60s. So as soon as I came here, I walked into his factory. So in a way, for London, I'm the second generation tailor.
So your uncle was in the rag trade.
Rug trade, yes.
You didn't necessarily want to be there. It wasn't an aspiration, or was it just what the family did?
At the time, what the family did, my aspiration was to finish university. I did part-time working with my uncle, but also I went to university. But I found gradually working more and more for my uncle. And then after a couple of years, I was working full-time in his factory.
Was it a culture shock coming from Istanbul to London in the 80s?
Yes and no, because Istanbul is such a hectic, big city, chaotic city. I found exactly the same thing here. It was chaotic. Those days London was dark. It was a bit gloom in the mid 80s and late 80s. But I liked it. I liked the energy in London. I liked the diversity in London. I liked the fact that it was very welcoming.
Has that changed, I wonder? This is actually a question I was going to get into later in the interview, but since you bring it up, we're in the middle of Brexit. I mean, yesterday or the day before, we were watching Parliament kind of in uproar and twisted faces. You came as an immigrant in the 80s. I wonder, would you get the same welcome today, do you think?
In London, you do. I think London has its own bubble. And London is still welcoming. And if you, as a person, curious and creative, I think London is very hungry for such characters. And I don't know what happens outside London. That's my problem. But also, at the same token, I don't think countryside knows what's happening in London as well. So that's not knowing each other creates that kind of tension, I guess, yeah.
So tell me, when you arrived in your uncle's factory, I mean, you started as a presser. You didn't go straight into the kind of management. You weren't running the place.
No.
So you were working on the floor.
Yeah. I started as a presser.
What is a presser? Just for people who don't know.
When the machinists stitch to sleeves or pocket bags, it has to go to presser to flatten the stitching. In fact, a good presser could make okay stitching perfect, because through pressing it's a bit like when you take your shirt from the washing machine. It doesn't look that nice, it's all crisp, but if you press it nicely, it becomes alive. So presser has a very important job. That's what I learned.
But then you became a quality controller.
Then gradually they needed quality controlling. I was curious. I became a quality controller. And within a couple of years of that, my uncle opened a second factory. It wasn't going well, and he wanted to sell it, and he offered it to me. I was still very young. I was turning 25.
Right. How long had you been in the country by this stage?
By that time, 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. 7 year cycle. That's an interesting one. So by that time, I knew how garments should be constructed. I wasn't still 100% sure. I did take the job. I did take the challenge. Within 1 year, I became very sick, very stressed, because it wasn't as easy.
Right.
What I did, I enrolled myself into a short course in Central St. Martin, sewing techniques and pattern cutting. So I had a factory, 130 people working. I went to school, so my learning shot up, because everything I was learning, I was practicing in the factory.
What kind of things were you making? I mean, you weren't just working in denim at this stage, I'm
No,
guessing.
we were not. We were making tailored jackets. We were for ladies, and that's an interesting one because with the men's tailoring, it's very structured, and you have 3, 4, 5 styles. But with ladies tailoring, the shapes and the colors and the pockets always changes, and that's more challenging for a tailor because when you used to shaping up only one color, it's so easy. But when you do 30, 40 different shapes every week, that's more challenging. So when you are challenged by so many different shapes, your body shapes, then what happens, you have to learn quicker. You have to learn deeper, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So you were running your own factory with 130 staff and making garments for women. How did you end up in the situation where we are now, where you're making these premium craft jeans? What went on in between?
Yeah, I guess it's in London, in UK, and I would say similarly in Europe. What happened gradually, the production started to go to third world countries, Eastern Europe, China, Vietnam, and of course I followed that journey as well. So I opened my first offshore factory in Turkey because that's where culturally I am from. Then there we employed 450 people. Within 4 or 5 years of that, the high street demanded cheaper garment from us. Then I moved to China. Within 5 years of our opening in China, again, high street said, it's expensive. Can you move to Vietnam because it's cheaper? At that point, I had a family. At that point, my daughters were 12 and 9, and I haven't seen them grown because I was always traveling offshore. And I have decided to stop everything because I felt so disconnected. I felt so split within me. I decided to get out of the fashion world, get out of...
Completely?
Completely,
Wow.
completely. I was disgusted because when you start splitting with your own values, and further down, after a couple of years, I couldn't really recognize myself.
So what you discussed the conditions people were working in, or what was the key to this?
The key to mainly, I would say, me not having relationship with my daughters, me not feeling connected to London, but at the same time, just to give you an example, in China, deep in China, workers, they are paid once a year. So what happens they live in dormitories, they are paid once a year, every 11 months. Then when they are paid, they go to their villages and then come back. So I was in one of those dormitories. I was looking at the workers. They were smoking, they were cooking. And at that point, I realized, actually, I am exactly like them because I am away from my kids. I don't see my kids very often. And I identified with them. And that was the bulk moment for me.
So you decided to throw the whole lot in, leave the fashion world, and did you have a plan? What did you do?
I didn't have a plan. No, I didn't have a plan. But I felt that I had to come out of it. It was suffocating, and I spoke to my business partner at the time. He was willing to take my share, and I came to London and I gave the news to my family. They were very happy, and we decided to take 1 year off. We jumped into our big old Volvo and went around Europe for 1 year.
Wow. How old were your kids?
12 and 9.
Gosh.
Yeah, exactly.
The schools not have anything to say about this.
Schools, We were a bit fortunate because my kids went to Rudolf Steiner School.
Okay.
I don't know if you
Yeah,
know
yeah.
Rudolf Steiner School. So they were very flexible, and we also assured them throughout the journey we were going to stop local Rudolf Steiner schools, and we did. We stopped at Paris, we stopped at Switzerland, we stopped in Rome, and so that was another kind of education for the girls as well, because traveling is very educational, I guess. So on my return after a year, I decided to open a local restaurant because I love food, I love wine.
Local to where? Where were you?
Local to North London, Stoke Newington.
Okay.
And I opened this very nice looking, beautiful restaurant. Within 1 year of me opening that restaurant, something else happened, which is a year ago I was feeling disconnected. I was feeling very strange to the city that I lived. Within 1 year of opening my own restaurant in my own local neighborhood, I started to know people's name, people's children, people's grandfathers, and whenever I realized I was coming out of my house, my door, instead of looking down and rushing somewhere, I was just putting my eyes and trying to catch a gaze, somebody else's gaze, to say hello. So that was a very interesting feeling, just feeling rooted to your community.
It's an interesting one though as well, because restaurants aren't 9 to 5 either.
No.
I mean, they're quite time-consuming, taxing businesses, right?
They are. But I think when you have that in your local community, the energy is different. I assume, this is assumption only, if I had my restaurant in West End, Central London, if I wasn't connected to my customers, then it's a chore. So I had a different kind of pleasure from the antisocial hours, because I was socializing with my neighbors.
No, fair enough. Did the restaurant do well?
We did well. It was very successful. I was learning a lot. And also something else was happening while in 2008, 9, 10 in London. We started seeing lots of craft beer productions appearing everywhere. They were also, we had lots and lots of gourmet burger joints appearing as well. So those gourmet burgers and craft beer changed people's perception of quality. It was very interesting to watch, because I was trying to identify why fashion is not able to do that. Yeah, that's another story though.
Well, but this was brewing. You were looking at this in the restaurant, and because that suggests to me that you weren't necessarily set in doing the restaurant for the rest of your career. Did it feel like a stopgap? Were you always going to come back to the fashion world?
I didn't know that I was going to come back to the fashion world. I also do humanistic psychotherapy, and in one of those sessions, we were 7, 8 people. The theme was, how do you define yourself as an artist? When do you become an artist? We all believe that we have our artistic sides. And of course, everybody has different ways of deeping into their artistic side. So we were 8 people or 9 people in the room. And everybody was talking about how they deep into their artistic side. When the question came to me, I couldn't really define that. I had a beautiful restaurant, and it was really busy. We were getting beautiful reviews, but I wasn't sitting in the creative seat, because head chef was the creator. Head chef was deciding for the colors of the dishes, ingredients. And I said to everybody, guys, I need my time. I need to think about this. So 45 minutes later, when the turn came back to me, I realized I was really, really amazingly happy when I was cutting, making, sewing. And it was in this building where we are now. I was really happy artistically. So at that point, I decided to come back to fashion.
So you closed the restaurant? You sold the restaurant?
I sold the restaurant
Okay.
to a very reputable steakhouse with one condition. I said to them, I will sell you the restaurant, but the kitchen equipment, I'm going to take it with me. So idea was to create a small production unit where we had professional kitchen within the space, so that still we did a kind of pop-up restaurant within this space while we were producing
whatever it was you were going to
whatever-
produce.
yeah.
Well, let's talk about this building where we're sat, because you've owned this building for 25 years. It was the original factory that you owned back in the day that we talked about
Yes.
earlier. Can we talk about what's here? Because it's fairly extraordinary. It's a factory like few others that I visited. So for the listeners, what have we got in this building other than your denim?
Sure. I mean, it's an interesting building because it's a detached building, independent. It's not surrounded by other buildings. It has huge windows, all four corners. It has 2-story. Upstairs we have 28 art studios. There are painters, sculptures, and part of ground floor. That's where we are. As soon as you enter, you see people making jeans, garments. And if you go further, a bit like, it's surprising because people don't accept. When you start walking further in, you see the kitchen, you see the people sitting on a dining table. And there's another door, you open the door, further in, there's art conservation happening. And we have weavers. So it's quite a bit of diverse community we have here.
And the idea is the public can just walk in if they fancy it.
Idea is constantly people traffic coming in, when you have constant people coming into the production unit, something happens. First of all, you become more aware of what you do, that awareness, constant awareness. Secondly, people become curious. And of course, that creates kind of relationship as well. And that creates connectivity. I think the connectivity is a magic word in my life these days, because everything I do, everything we do here, the end aim is to create connectivity. So that's why when you have different walks of life coming in all the time, also something else happens, I guess. It's very inspirational. You inspire each other. And at modern day, when you work so hard, it's very difficult to be inspired constantly by each other. So I guess here, the other aim is to inspire each other.
So you have different disciplines who all feed off one another.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was important, obviously, to keep the relationship with food.
Oh, very important.
Why?
I think food is very honest, and around food, all the guards goes down. Around food, you become warmer. Around food, food is a magnet. It brings people together. So many good reasons.
So we talked about what's here in Walthamstow. What we haven't got into is why jeans? Where did the idea for jeans come up? And also the way that you were going to make them, because it's quite an unusual and brave thing to do, I would suggest.
I think some people do call me madman in that sense, because you do get much cheaper jeans, but they are not well made. That's the difference. One of the reasons we decided to do jeans, denim, to work with denim fabric, I thought as a denim, as a fabric, beautiful fabric, and it's been around for nearly 200 years as a fabric. But also it's not fashionable. I didn't want to work with fashion. I didn't want to be in fashion.
Right.
And
You want to get back into clothes without being in fashion.
I wanted to make amazing quality garments, but not necessarily fashion items.
Right.
And it has one color, blue, and 52 weeks you can wear it. Also, denim, because everybody wears denim, everybody drinks beer, everybody eats burger, unless you're vegetarian. A bit like the beer, what craft brewers did to the beer industry, they made the quality much higher than 10 years ago. I thought by having best jeans, by making best jeans in the world, we could inspire other makers to make that kind of quality.
So there's no question that craft has had a renaissance in this country over the past decade. What do you put that down to? Why are you involved in it, I wonder?
I would say several reasons. One is I feel that I come from a last generation of makers in terms of tailoring, in terms of garment making. And when London is losing its know-how so fast, my desire to stop that is one of the elements to that. And the other one is truly denim or jeans don't deserve to make badly. They deserve to be respected and they deserve to be made beautifully, like the craft beer. And by us making better garments, better jeans, as I said, hopefully we will increase the quality of other makers, other fashion houses. So our desire to make a difference in the society that we live in.
Can we try and work out why, in the broader picture of which you're part, why people, consumers, are becoming more interested in provenance, in the way things are made?
In my opinion, it's exactly the reason. It's the same reason that I went through, that feeling disconnected with the things that we buy, we do. And I think when you feel connected to the makers, when you feel connected to the chef that you go to their restaurant to, that has a different kind of quality. I'm talking about more holistic quality, more fulfillment. I think people are missing that. And that's that people have that desire to go back to that connectivity.
There was something else that you brought up earlier when you were talking about skills. So when you set this company up, were the skills easily found in London?
No. When we set up this little workshop here, denim is such a specialist fashion item, garment. You need specialist machineries. And if you're a tailor, you are not necessarily, you don't know how to use those machines. So we had to train people from scratch.
Where did you find them?
Word of mouth. There are still some tailors scattered around London. As I said, London has a huge heritage with tailoring, but it doesn't have a heritage of denim making, jeans making. So that was our advantage in a way, but at the same time our disadvantage. So we had to train people up to 6 months, 8 months, even though they were professional tailors, they were professional makers, still we had to train them from scratch. Again, that was to our advantage because when you train somebody from scratch, you could dictate the quality. But if you train somebody who already knows the job, they will dictate their own knowledge to you. So it was to our advantage.
And how many people have you got working here?
At this moment, 12 makers we have. 4 administration, so 16. The team is 16 people at this moment, yeah.
And what are their? I mean, they're tailors by background, but did you find them all in London? Have they come from other places?
All of them are Londoners.
Right.
I found them in London. They are Londoners. They are true Londoners. I don't know what that means. I think that's a matter of opinion.
Yeah.
But their cultural background is very different. Some we have Bulgarians.
Right.
We have Italians. We have people from Bangladesh, Turkish, Kurdish, New Zealand, English.
So it's a genuine melting pot. It's like London.
They are Londoners.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm interested, so when you first started in the business 20, 30 years ago, what were the backgrounds of the staff in those days?
25, 30 years ago, you had factories. If the owner was Turkish, you had lots of Turkish people working in the factory. If the owner were Greek, you had lots of Greeks working in the factory. If the owner was Bangladeshi, you had lots of people from Bangladesh working. But it's changed now. They're able to more, how do you say?
It's multicultural.
Yes, it's more multicultural, and they are able to communicate better. They are able to work together now.
Yeah, which shows. I mean, it's positive benefits of immigration. I'm guessing.
Absolutely, yes.
Saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. This sense of share options for the staff, them owning some of the company, did this emerge straight away? Do you have a model of how your business was going to work immediately?
No, it was just an idea, and still we are struggling with that because when you offer a machinist share ownership, first they look at you with surprise, and the sense of desire from me to have everybody have the share in the company. Sometimes it's not the machinists. Sometimes they don't want that, and that's really surprising. They don't want to have that responsibility.
So how do you get over that, or do you just shrug your shoulders? Okay, that's your choice.
I mean, first of all, you have to respect their choice, but then the secret is building relationship, building trust, and in that, when they start working with you a couple of years, 3 years, then I think then they understand you, because it's unheard of before. Whenever they worked, it wasn't, that option was never available. But then I had an IT guy who was working with me. He's from Texas. He's a Londoner now. And when I talked to him about share ownership, he just got it. And he owns 2% of the company now.
Right.
But he's not with us anymore. But he owns 2% of the company. So that was an interesting cultural difference as well. So you have to respect people's capacity, I guess.
Yeah. Can you tell us how many jeans you make a year and how long it takes to make a pair of jeans typically? It
depends on the order quantity we have. It depends on the fabric weight we have. Sometimes it goes down to 8 pairs a week. Sometimes it goes to 200 pairs a week. But generally, average, it takes us 4.5 hours to make one jeans.
Is that one person making the whole thing?
No, right. One person.
So you have a production line?
Yeah, I mean, because it's such a specialist engineered garment, you have 24 different operations in the jeans. 24 different operations. Wow. And also 12 or 13 different machinery. So it's impossible for one person to jump from one machine to the other trying to finish one garment. I mean, there are some brands out there saying that one person finishes. Maybe in a very micro level, one person could finish. But when you start producing hundreds a week, it becomes impossible.
In terms of the skills that people have on your workshop floor, can everybody do everything, or are people specialised in certain areas?
We have 12 people working as makers each of them specializes in 2 or 3 different machinery. So they can't work with every single machinery. For example, we had a very talented guy. He's left-handed, so he couldn't work with 2 machines because he was left-handed. I don't know why, but he was refusing to work with those 2 machinery. So it's person's ability as well.
And do you rotate, if they can work on 2 or 3 machines, do those people rotate on what machines they work on?
They do, yes, they do. To answer the other question in terms of how many hours it takes, so for us it takes 4.5 hours. Mass production jeans takes 18 minutes. So 4.5 hours London living wage, 18 minutes wherever the country is. So that's an interesting gap.
Can we talk about the denim itself and where you source it from?
Sure, yeah. I think that the denim started, as the name suggests, from France, Nîmes, about 160 years ago. And there's a big debate between Italians and French because Italian family had a factory in Italy and France and Nîmes. And for Italians, it's Italian fabric, but for French, it's a French fabric. But it became very commercial in the States. But unfortunately now in the States, there is no single meterage of denim produced. The last one, which was Cone Denim, shut its doors about 2 years ago. There's a rumor that another company is coming and they're going to restart that. But US is not producing any more denim fabric. It's sad. But then because they started opening different factories in different parts of the world, Japan makes really good fabric. The reason they make really good fabric, they look at their production in a very, they don't produce mass production. They refuse to do mass production, and they produce smaller quantities, and they look at it in a very craft way. They can't amount of dyeing they do with the yarns, the sloppiness, and sometimes they even go extra mile to go to the farms, and they choose, a bit like wine making, they choose their own cotton. So Italians, they are not as good as Japan, but they produce still very good quality fabric. Theirs are more fashion, more drapier. Again, like Japan, they don't produce cotton, but they buy their cotton from Egypt. And from Italy to here, 1,800 kilometers, Egypt to Italy, 500. So the carbon footprint of Italian fabric is 2,300 kilometers compared to 20,000 kilometers Japanese.
Because this is on your website. You talk about the sustainability and the carbon footprint quite a lot. This is obviously important to you as a company.
It is. And also, I think it's important for our customers so that they could make choices. And, when you make educated choices, then responsibility is yours.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that transparency, that knowledge, then how could you make? So I think every customer, every company has to provide that to their customers, because fashion companies are still very secretive about their carbon footprint of their fabrics. So in a way, we are doing that just to maybe have a much cleaner conscience, because at the end, our customer has to make that decision when they buy their
So it boils down to transparency again.
Transparency, yes.
Same as open factory and
exactly,
everything else. I mean, I was intrigued when I walked into your shop. You have a new shop in Coldrops Yard, which is delightful. And the shop assistant kind of almost ticked me off when I said I already had one pair of your jeans and I'd quite like another. And she said, no, just one pair. That's all you need. So this is the other thing. You kind of, it's almost anti-retail. You're kind of putting people off buying more pairs of jeans.
Our aim is not to put people off buying.
Right.
Definitely not. But our aim is to create awareness with people and make them understand, actually, if you have one of our jeans, one of our garments, we could repair it for you free of charge so that you buy less. And I think we really believe in that. And also, that's another thing, we want people to emotionally connect with their garments. And how do you achieve that? The way you achieve that, in my opinion, is to make sure that your customer use their garments long enough so that they build memories with that, so that emotional, sentimental connectivity grows. So with that, of course, when you have emotionally invested into any clothing you have, and their sentimental value goes up, then what happens? Then you don't throw anything away. Then you hoard those memories. So idea is through that we create a society where we don't throw things away. We repair it.
Which is lovely. And we had a podcast in our first series with Glenn Adamson, the design architecture critic and curator, who'd written a book called Fewer Better Things. Mm. And I put to him during that this is a lovely sentiment and place to be. I mean, it is for the middle and upper classes, isn't it? It's for people with money. How do people who are on lower incomes, can they do the same thing?
It's an interesting one, because I come from a poor family, and my mum, my grandma, they used to mend clothes. And the rich people didn't mend clothes, or middle classes didn't mend. So I don't understand your question. What do you mean by that?
Let's put me in my place.
So I'm just turning that around, actually.
Yes, no, it's fine. I guess it's about immediate. It's outlay to begin with, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I see. Okay, it's
how we persuade everybody other than the Waitrose shopping classes to buy into this, I guess.
I think my take on that is, I have a friend. He's a banker. His wife, she's a judge. They earn quite good money. And until 4 years ago, they were buying garments from Primark. And when I started talking to them about the impact of that, I think then gradually their mindset shifted. So we still need Primarks, we still need affordable clothing, but also we have a certain society, we need to create different kind of awareness for them to change their shift their habitual shopping experience to a better locally produced, because we have room for both, I believe.
So if you're thinking global, acting local, is there a plan to expand? Can a business like yours expand? Should a business like yours expand?
I think it should, but not in your traditional sense. The locality is important for us. If we decide to open a branch in, let's say, in Tokyo, we should become partners with the local tailor, and they should have more shares than us, and we should exchange our knowledge, and it could be Tokyo identity with their own connectivity to the locality. We could still produce beautiful jeans there as well. But the idea is to create a connectivity with the local people. Or it could be in Helsinki, it could be, but it has to be with the local partners. So you're expanding the philosophy rather than the actual jeans making.
So I think I've taken up nearly enough of your time. It's the final question that we always do in this interview.
Okay.
Plans for the future. Obviously, you've just opened up at Cold Drops, but are there other plans afoot?
No. We just want to... At Cold Drops, we created a space where part of it is we're going to put some machinery, and we haven't launched that yet, but we're going to run master classes. My dream, and I'm going to push that really hard. While we are selling denim there, jeans, I want people to learn how to make jeans as well. And my aim is to have lots of jeans brand in London.
Coming out of your masterclasses?
Coming out of London, yes. Our masterclasses or equally Central St. Martin, from Central St. Martin, Royal College of Art, London School of Fashion. But hopefully we will be a good example for them to follow.
So denim, you start the microbrewery trend in denim is fundamentally
Exactly,
what you're
yes,
saying?
Yes.
Well, that's a lovely place to leave it. Hannah Taj, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And to learn more about Blackhorse Lane Ateliers, go to blackhorselane.com. There are images from the interviews as well as little films and other things on my Instagram page, Grant on Design. If you've enjoyed listening and want to see this podcast flourish, then please rate and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this from, and go to my Patreon page and make a pledge. You can find that at patreon.com/material matters. You'll be helping to take the message of the importance of materials, skill, craft and design to a whole new audience. The next series will be out in November, and if you'd like to sponsor an episode or even a series, do email me at grant@grantondesign.com. So that's it, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thanks very much for listening.